I really hate heroes. They burst onto the scene, capes billowing, without bothering to gather all the facts. All in the name of protecting the so-called innocents. What a joke. It's not my fault the fickle whims of magic branded me a necromancer. Sure, being an elemental or an animal tamer would have been great, but it's not like I had a say in the matter. My only crime was defending myself when the truth of my powers came to light. Okay, in hindsight, resurrecting the recently deceased to study their differences from my skeletal minions that I conjure might have been a little reckless. And perhaps turning that pompous noble into my undead general was a tad extreme. But come on, I had no need for that ridiculously gaudy armor, and it's not like he was a good person. Taxes are a blight upon anyone. If anything, the people owe me a debt of gratitude. Regardless, I still hate heroes. Especially that time mage, Gabriel Spellwind. First off, who came up with the pretentious name Spellwind? And secondly, his frivolous use of time magic. Who just throws that kind of magic around as if you were sowing seeds in a field? What did he think was going to happen when it hit the support beam of my dark, majestic castle? When it all came crumbling down, he laughed at me. He laughed. Then conjured a portal that he said would lead him to the time just before he entered my lands and destroyed my army. I may hate heroes, but I'm glad that they don't have common sense. I simply jumped to the portal first. But now, here I am, listening to some mortal bemoan about the supposed apocalypse.
When I first heard about zombies, I was kind of excited, you know? Zombies shambling around that we could mess with at a distance. But no, these things run as fast as their bodies did before they died, and without breaking a sweat. It's so unfair. I just wanted to go to the beach, drink margaritas, and talk to single girls on vacation who were looking to make mistakes. Instead, I get dropped off in the middle of marathon-running zombies who want to snack on my goods like I'm a piece of candy.
Since I awoke and asked what was going on, this guy has ranted for about 5 minutes straight. It's unfortunate, because I only understood about 10% of what he was talking about. I held up my finger, concentrating on the few things I could understand, and asked, "Did you just say zombie apocalypse? As in undead corpses with an uncontrollable hunger for flesh? And that they are trying to destroy the world?" The man looked at me incredulously, with cheeks still red from his ranting.
Haven't you been listening?
He practically shouted. I nodded at him and began to ponder. So, this world had fallen to the undead. If there was someone controlling them, they hadn't done a very good job. There were no organized patrols, and what about subjugating the living? As fun as having massive undead armies was, the conversation could get a little stale. Plus, this man was hardly a warrior, and wasn't very quiet. It seems that his survival was more luck than skill. Or maybe, it was due to the rather peculiar-looking staff on his back. However, this was an unexpected delight. If I could control them, I would have another army, and could take my revenge against those self-righteous, so-called heroes. Before I could start my plan for for the future, I need information. I understand. What realm is this? Have the Darklands invaded this plane? Who is the master of the local magic guild? What kingdom are we in? I was going to ask more questions, but I noticed the man seemed to be agitated rather than confused.
Look, I don't know what Renaissance fairy you came from, or if you're just trying to roleplay a wizard, but this is real. If we don't find some help, we're gonna end up as some zombie snack. We're just outside Miami, and we need to head to higher ground. It's going to rain, and every time it has rained in this area, the water rises, and the swamp puppies start to get brave.
I really hate heroes. That portal didn't send me back in time. Instead, it sent me to Earth. Even on Illyria, we have heard of Floor Men, and they make people who are addicted to frog slime seem insane by comparison. And that jerk Spellwind dropped me off just outside their capital. Well, first things first. I need to find out as much as I can about these zombies and see what kind of magic I'm up against. Also, this guy saved my life. I was unconscious when I landed here, and he was kind enough to carry my body to this building. As a Dark Lord, as a fair and just Lord that I am, I hate being indebted to people. He might not be physically impressive, but he saved my life. And as the fair and just ruler that I am, I will reward his actions. Decision made, I proceeded to ask, could you show me one? Preferably one isolated from a horde? I want to see what we're up against. His look of confusion quickly gave way to amusement that eventually became uncontrollable laughter. As he looks at my unimpressed face, he manages to say,
Dear comedian, I'm sure we'll run into some on our way out of town.
He shakes his head and gestures for me to follow. Social interaction has not been my strong suit as of late. So, I can happily say that this exchange went much better than I expected. As we walked out of the building, I get my first look at the home of Floor Men. And I have to say, I'm not all that impressed. Metal wagons lined the street, and each seemed to be a different shape. All had fading paint, and many had rust. Buildings were sturdy and unremarkable, clearly made of stone and wood, with clear glass windows that allowed one to see inside. As my attention shifted to my companion, I noticed that he had removed the staff from his back and is holding it against the shoulder. That's interesting. It seems like he might actually be a combustion mage. I have never seen a staff like that. It was metal, and utilitarian, almost crude in its design. I had a few siblings who were combustion mages in their lives, but their staffs were more ornate. That just reminds me that my undead army couldn't use the magic that they had in their life. Oh, how I wish they did. The heroes would have never stood a chance. As I continued to think about the dumb limitations set by my magic, a sudden moan caught my attention. Looking at the location of the moan, I found a Graveborn. This zombie must have recently been risen, based on the state of decay, and now I understood why the man was so upset about the speed of the zombies. As soon as the zombie caught our scent, it was running full speed at us. The man beside me swore and lifted his staff. However, before he could channel his magic, I stepped in front of him while dark magic poured out of my raised hand. When my magic contacted the Graveborn, it stopped instantly, and my expression turned ecstatic. If this zombie had been controlled by another magic user, I would have felt the magic and been able to trace it to its source. However, there was none. Not a single trace of magic in this undead body. And my mind came to the startling conclusion that no one was controlling them. As my magic surrounded the zombie, I yelled out, Domin Ari, and dominated the undead's non-existent will. After it finished, I cackled in glee. I still hate heroes, but I'm gonna have to thank that idiot Spellwind. He really gave me a great present. Oh, this is perfect. Before I could continue with my plots of my plots for revenge, I heard the man behind me curse. As I turned around, I noticed he was shaking, with his staff still raised. The end was switching between me and the zombie, before he eventually found his voice. It came out shaky, but at least I could understand.
What just happened? What did you do?
I have seen this look before. Oh, how I hate dealing with the plebs. I sighed. This fool obviously didn't see many other mages. Magic, of course. I'm a necromancer, so dealing with the undead is kind of my thing. Instead of answering, he continues to shake, but decides that the zombie is obviously the bigger threat, as he keeps his staff pointed towards it. Look, if you help me, I can end this so-called apocalypse. But I really need some help. I really need some help. If you help me deal with this, I promise to help you with any one request, as long as it doesn't lead to my death. Deal? I reach out my hand, hoping he would accept my offer. But if he doesn't, well, I have a new spell I created that might make a talking undead. Even if he doesn't retain his combustion magic, it would be nice to talk to one of my subordinates for a change.